Hello, and welcome back to rule number 2 in Dr. Jordan B. Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. Rule number 2 is treat yourself like someone you were responsible for helping. You can dive into it. He kind of, so far, for the past 2 rules, he kind of, molds everything together at the end. He kind of wants his final message and really, I think what he wants us to take away from at the end. So I think we'll get there. So we can start with page 34 and 35, these pages. He's just like explaining how, before the scientific world, before really we had much of any science and thought of that nature, everything was explained through stories. And in those stories, it was, kind of subjective experiences. I know in some Native American tribes, they said that nighttime was explained by, one of the gods putting a blanket over the night sky. And I think one of the origin stories of the stars was that, I forget which bird, but it was probably like a woodpecker or something, that it would fly up and it would poke holes into the sky, and that would create the stars, because in essence, the sun was always shining, but they put a blanket over the earth so that way people could sleep at night. I'm sure I'm butchering this, and I apologize if I am. That's just something I remember learning, something along those lines. And when they would try to break through into the blanket, the sun would be shining through, and those little stars or the little specks where the bird tried to break through, and it'd give people a little bit of light at night. And I apologize if I totally got that wrong, but these are just stories of people explaining their experiences and thought processes of how the world works in their minds. Because in reality, they didn't. They just kind of had to make guesses and do things that suited them. So on to page 36, I guess just the very next page. His explanation of chaos being, unexplored territory and order being explored territory. I completely agree with that. That makes total sense. When your life's in order, you're in control, you're in the know, you know what's going on. And he explains it as being on thin ice, which you're skating on thin ice, which I think is beautifully said when you're in order. Because you are, right? If you're skating on thin ice, that takes just like one little crack and you fall through, and then you're in the world of chaos. And I think that's exactly how order is. It will never last forever, and it will only last for a very short time of when you're in your explored and your known territory. I think I was watching a video with John Cleats from Monty Python, and he said, how do you make God laugh? And you tell him your plans, which, is not his joke. I just remember him saying that as a joke one time. And that's a perfect way of putting it. Your plans and whatever you want to do will, something will probably go awry, and that's when you enter the chaos and the unexplored territory, and you just have to figure that out. And the unknown is very scary, honestly. It's pretty hard to deal with and to figure things out on your own. I'm finished with college. I have a job, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, so I gotta manage my budget this way, and okay, how much can I spend for this, and what do I want this credit card, and it's scary, it's unknown, and it's unexplored. And of course I'm getting help from other people with how they've managed their lives so far, but honestly, it's unexplored territory, it's chaos, but I'm trying to manage it to get to the known territory. And I will get my budget on track, and I'll figure out the credit cards, and that will be kind of order for me. And then of course something else will pop up. So skating on thin ice right there. Page 39, he's explaining order and chaos, kind of as male and female. This one took me a few reads to maybe understand what he's talking about, but I kind of latched on to him saying how order and chaos, they're not understood first objectively and then personified. You kind of you see the you perceive something, and you have a reaction to it, or you have an understanding the meaning behind something. Like take for example, like a screwdriver. You don't think of that as an object, as like, oh, it's you think of its purpose as, oh, it's gonna tighten or loosen these screws, and I think when you're in the middle of chaos or order, I don't think you recognize the two. I think you just recognize, oh, things are going well right now, and then you may perceive it as like an object, as, okay, I'll categorize this as an order, or something just going crazy and you're trying to manage it and fix it together and hold it together with all your duct tape, and you're like, oh, now I'm in chaos. It's that realization after. And I could be off on this, I have no idea. This is just kind of me going through this, and I read these pages like 2 days ago, I think. So it's hard to get back into it. And I tried rereading. I really need to read the book and then make the video right away, so that way my understanding and everything's are fresh. So I'll try to do that moving forward. I just kind of got busy with work and everything, but I'll try to do that next time. Pages 40 and 41. It's just an extension of page 39, really, but he's talking about order kind of being more male and chaos being female. And I kind of understand his writings and where he's coming from. I think, for example, it can create a lot of chaos, at least for males, when trying to choose a partner. I guess women are kind of the gateway to having kids, because pretty much every living creature on Earth, ingrained in their DNA is to reproduce. You kind of live, you reproduce, and you die. It's kind of ingrained into every living creature. You want to create that offspring. And so if you cannot find a partner that will, hitch up with you and create some offspring, that will definitely bring some chaos into your life. And I guess when he's saying like the men kind of bring some order through, like, it could be like the military or the judge and God the Father and everything. I guess that could be a little controversial nowadays. I mean, he's not wrong for the past. In the past, it was kind of just like the man's world, but I guess times are changing. But at least if we're going to look at this as a historical perception, I think he's probably correct. And you can't just look at history through today's lens. You have to put yourself in that time period of how things were going and what was happening at that time. And you have to take at it from that approach. You can't just take everything from 2023. Or I guess we're in 2024. I gotta adjust my brain here. But yeah, you just can't. Obviously, you can judge and recognize things as wrong, but you have to put yourself in their shoes. And I think that's important. And of course, we can change the world for the better. That's what progress is. And I think we are making that progress. Okay. Page 44. Oh yes. He says you can't just have your life in order, and you can't have it just in chaos. And I think he's completely correct when he says you have to have one foot in the door of order and mastery, and one foot in the door of kind of chaos, unexplored opportunities to grow. Because that is that's the only way you will grow. You have to have that unknown, and I think this book is trying to have people help find kind of meaning in their life. And I have a friend in medical school right now. He's one of my best friends. He's one of my very closest friends. And I mean, as you can imagine, medical school is very hard. You have to study all the time, and you have all these tests and all this pressure. he's like, oh man, it sucks. I hate this. I wish I could like go outside and work out and do all this stuff, but I have to stay and study. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds terrible. Like, is it worth it? Like, do you feel inside that this is good for you? And he was like, it sucks a lot. And of course I want to be a doctor, but he's like, I think I would hate it more if every day in medical school it was, baking, the cupcakes and putting sprinkles on, and you do that every day, like, not that baking's a beautiful art form, but what he's saying is like if it was easy, he wouldn't be doing it. His exact words were, I'm not doing this because it's easy. I'm doing this for this challenge and the hard work that I have to put into, because it's rewarding to know that you're reaping what you sow. And I've seen some of Dr. Peterson's, YouTube videos before, and him explaining how you have to have a challenge, that way you can feel accomplished. And I totally agree with that. You have to have, some sort of goal you need to work towards, and something to push yourself, because the human brain, I feel like is never satisfied. Most people I know are never satisfied and complacent. And if they are, they definitely aren't the most happy people if they're just stuck where they are. I think a lot of people do get stuck at where they are, and they dream of going somewhere else and doing something else. I think, me just starting out as a younger person, there's still so many things that I can try and take risk on. I don't have a family, so I can take more risk than some other people, and it would be very hard if I had a family to just go and do something, but you have to have something to help push yourself, to challenge yourself, and in order to grow, to become a better person than you were before. That's completely true. Page 47. Here, well, at the top, he says, he's talking about, the snake in the Garden of Eden, and, could it have been prevented if they didn't allow the snake and stuff like that. And he says, like, the top here, he says, the worst of all possible snakes is the eternal human proclivity for evil. The worst of all possible snakes is psychological, spiritual, personal, internal. Yeah. That's very true. And no walls, however tall, could have kept any snake or anything out, and that's true. I mean, humans can be evil. I mean, he talked about that in the previous chapter. You just can't assume everyone has their best intention for you, and to go around blindly thinking the best of everyone, because not everyone does have their best intentions for you at heart, and some people do have that proclivity for evil. And if you can try to keep it out, but people can be persuaded to do almost anything in the right conditions. And there's no possible way of keeping that snake out when it's internal, when it's in someone. At the moment, we don't know what people are thinking, and it could surprise you with some things. And then also, kind of in the second paragraph here, start of the newest paragraph on the page, at the very last sentence, he says, it is far better to render beings in your care competent than to protect them. And I have to agree with him as well. I mean, I think it's almost like a cliche now that, if you go to college, the most protected kids by their parents, once they get there, they go crazy. They drink the most alcohol or do the most drugs, or they just go wild. And I think that can be true. And I think we were talking about like 1 foot in the door of order and 1 foot in the door of chaos. That's the only way you can grow. And I think I would have to agree, if someone's too protected, they'll honestly become useless once they enter the real world. And you have to put your kids through challenges, so that way they know that they have to keep going, and that they can overcome those challenges. And even if they fail, you can keep going. And I know that's very cliche, almost everyone tells you, but you kind of have to. You have to just keep fighting, and hopefully you'll get there one day. And maybe, you keep fighting for that one thing, but maybe you start another thing, and that other thing you accomplish. And maybe the first thing you started out didn't work out, but the second thing you're able to do, and at least you'll get some enjoyment there. There's always something that you can do to reap some enjoyment if you just keep trying. And you gotta challenge your kids. And I was very happy my parents challenged me with stuff growing up. It wasn't hard, like with sports and school and all that stuff. Just trying to become better. And even if you fail, like, you're always gonna fail. You're gonna have more fails than successes, and so you just gotta be competent, like Peterson says. Page 51. Let's see here. I found it very amusing how he's saying that Adam's the most is wretched and is like the most typical guy. He blames Eve and he blames the snake, and he didn't know that it was that apple. And I just thought it was hilarious. I was like, yeah, no, that's very true. If the guy's gonna get in trouble and he wants to keep his pride and show himself, which we saw, or I guess we read in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest at the very end. Spoiler alert. But when Billy Bibbit gets caught by Nurse Ratched with candy, and she's like, I'm going to tell your mom, what did he do? He started blaming everyone else but himself. And especially he blamed McMurphy, and he blamed, the other acutes. And eventually, he took his own life. But he blamed everybody but himself because he was fearful that he was going to, lose his good faith with his mom, and he was going to lose his pride. And I mean, I think we've all been there, and I know most of the guys, they have to seem macho and tough, and that they can take things. And so if they can blame it on someone else, so that way they don't look bad, especially in front of a potential partner or their partner, I think they will. They got to prove that they're a better suitor than the other men around them to, catch that girl or guy or whatever. But I thought that was pretty funny. Page 57 and 58, I think I mentioned in the last video, my freshman year English teacher, we had to memorize quotes. He was a big quote guy. I mentioned the Ezra Pound quote, which was, there's no such thing as reading. There is only rereading. And he actually taught us this T.S. Eliot quote, although it was only the first 4 lines, like, we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Just T.S. Eliot, 1888 through 1965. I even remember the dates that he was born and died, which it was the first quote that he ever taught us. And, I can't really recall why he taught us this quote, but obviously it's important. Peterson's got it in here, and the quote keeps going. But so after much thinking and reading, I think, even on page 58 here, he says, like, if we lived in the truth and we spoke with truth, we could walk with God once again and respect ourselves and others in the world. And we might treat ourselves like people we cared for. And oh yeah, even at the top he says, like, we don't take care of ourselves because in our own eyes we see ourselves as fallen creatures, which, like, we ate that apple just like Adam and Eve, and we aren't worthy of that. But I think when he's saying we got to look back and if we arrive where we first started, I think if we're exploring and searching for the good and trying to help others, we got to come back to the start, which is ourselves, to respect ourselves and to treat ourselves better. So that way, we can walk with God, and while we have like this sin with us, and we will always sin, and you can say sin, or we'll mess up and we'll make mistakes. You can interchange all of these. We still need to respect ourselves and find the good in ourselves to be able to, we can metaphorically walk with God again, or, just earn that right to be among good people. And so we can search all we want, but we got to come back to ourselves and to satisfy the the needs that we need to, find that meaning in life, and to, become a better person ourselves. We got to start with ourselves. I think that's it. But of course, mention in the comments. Someone did comment in the last video. That was very nice. Your comments, sir or ma'am. Thank you for that one. Anyway, page 59, Peterson. Yeah, he's talking about how, we don't really inflate ourselves. We want, we think it's virtuous to help others and even put ourselves through hell just to help others, or like even if we think we deserve it. And, he says, like, it is not virtuous to be victimized by a bully, even if that bully is oneself. And that's 100% true. I think my toughest critic, and pretty much almost everyone's toughest critic, is themselves. And if you're a competitive person, or not even too competitive, I'm sure most things you do aren't good enough. It's got to be good. It's got to be better. You got to beat the people around you. At least that's what's in me. I got kind of that fire in myself to want to be better than the other people, to compete, to be the best. And I'm a very tough critic of myself, and I do a bad job of respecting myself. Sometimes I give myself credit, but for the most part, even if I do accomplish one of my goals, I'm like, on to the next one. It's not good enough. I got to keep going up, and that's hard. I really do need to take a step back and respect myself and treat myself like I treat other people. I love to be encouraging, and I do really find enjoyment in having other people become the best selves that they can. That's pretty much like a coach. That's like a coach's role, is to encourage and to bring out the best in other people so that they may perform well. It's not the coach out there playing football. It is the players. While he can make the calls and say what play they're doing, it is up to the players to dig deep and to become something greater than they ever thought that they could, and for the team to combine, to come together as a big word here, gestalt, right? I think that means to be greater than the whole is greater than each of the parts, or the sum of the parts, something along those lines. But to encourage other people to become better than themselves, I do enjoy that. I like that a lot. But as for myself, I feel I do a poor job of I do allow myself to become the best that I can be, but I still don't respect myself well enough in that process. And that's something I need to work on. Page 61. Let's see. He says here, there are so many ways that things can fall apart or fail to work together, and it is always wounded people who are holding it together. And that's another beautiful quote right there. It's the human spirit is quite amazing, and how people can persevere through almost anything if they have to. And everyone you meet has baggage. There's a reason why someone acts a certain way or does a certain thing. We all have baggage, and we're all wounded, and somehow, some way, we can all get in a car and drive, and maybe we let someone in front of us, but we're not out there smashing into each other. We all somehow are keeping it together. We're staying on this road and going where we need to go without crashing into the stoplight or each other or something like that, which is kind of amazing that we go outside every day, drive these machines that can go like well over 100 miles per hour, and somehow we keep it together. And that's every single one of us. No one else there's not a single person who hasn't been wounded in their life trying to keep things together. And, every person, maybe they're more wounded than others, but I don't think this quote just refers to certain people. This refers to everyone. Somehow we're all going out there in society and keeping it together for the most part, no matter how awful some of the things we've gone through. And finally, page 63, he talks about the need of taking care of yourself and standing up and figuring out who you are so that way you can bargain for yourself. That's a good one. The problem is you got to find out who you are first and what exactly you want. But if you can, you do need to stand up and bargain for yourself and to negotiate and get where you need to go. Okay, so Friedrich Nietzsche here at the bottom, he whose life has a why can bear almost any how, which if you have never read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, it is a beautiful book. It's quite short, and he was a psychiatrist that survived the camps during the Holocaust, and he mentions this, and that's pretty much why he was able to make it through. He wanted to go and see his wife again. He thought that she was still alive and would make it through the camps, and that was the only way anyone could make it. He said that you could tell right away when someone was going to die. You could tell it would be in a day or two's time, because they wouldn't go out and work. They would start smoking their cigarettes. He said once someone started smoking all of their cigarettes, they had given up on the why, and it was usually because they found out some news about something, and that just crushed them on the inside, and so they gave up. And some people were unlucky and got sent to the gas chambers, but if you happen to be lucky, which living through that is not very lucky, but I guess he made it out, which is lucky. He attributed all of that, to needing to see his wife again and to make it through for her. And I think that's true. The human spirit is amazing. It can do a lot of things. Your mind is very powerful, and you need to manage, tame, and use it wisely. Alrighty, I will see you in rule number 3. Make friends with people who want the best for you. Well, that sounds nice. Until next time.